I like how supremely unimpressed Matt is with this whole conversation.
All right, I have the game on next to me.
That's-
I'm just being honest.
No, cool.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the BTB Movie Club podcast. My name is Ryan Malo. We hope you enjoyed today's movie discussion. Thanks for listening.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Tim Larson. Welcome to the BTB Movie Club podcast. We're here to discuss movie number 206. This is Mike Whildin's fine pick, Galaxy Quest from 1999. Mike, the show is yours. Take it away.
So I hope you all enjoyed, Tim. I hope you presented this the way I intended it to last week. The ride through all of the Hollywood blockbusters of Marvel and the Dark Knight trilogy and Harry Potter just to get to the cult classic of Galaxy Quest.
Correct.
I kind of did that all on a whim, just as I was thinking about it. So yeah, I don't know, it works. I wanted a movie that I didn't have to think very hard for this week, and I feel like this fit the bill.
Did you by any chance notice any flaw in your progression through the 6 movies in getting to Galaxy Quest?
No, was there one?
Well, now the rule is for this theme up to 6 moves to get to the movie. The last movie was Searching for Bobby Fischer, and Tony Shalhoub is in there as a chess player, and he's in this movie. You could have made it in one
Hilty
step.
reminded me of that. I don't fucking care. I wanted to take you guys for the ride. It's 6 degrees. I had 6 degrees to work with, and I used the 6 degrees. So you go fuck yourself.
This is also the most Whildin move that you could have done to go
short story long.
Yeah.
Short story long.
Also true. So a second fuck you to Tim Larson. All right.
He's
I got
edgy.
the wheel.
He's edgy today with the
Let's
black
see.
hoodie.
Wow,
He's just
pulling out the
he's
wheel.
like, all right,
Right
had
after it.
enough.
Oh,
Oh,
Filthy. We're gonna hear from first.
Oh, that
The last
odds.
click.
was like the Price
You
is
got
Right,
Pat
just
Sajak.
right on the dollar.
yeah. This is a great pick. I love this movie. It's a lot of fun, and it's funny because in an age where movies and TV shows movies are becoming TV shows and movies are going back to prequels, you would think that this one would be ripe for a sequel, and it just hasn't happened yet. And
True.
it was allegedly in the works before Alan Rickman passed away, and now it's still in the works somehow, but it's still something that I think there's more to mine here, and they just need to, progress forward with it. Just it's funny because this is a movie that has classic studio interference written all over this, because this originally was a lot darker and it was also rated R once upon a time. And I think it would have been interesting to see what that interpretation would have been had DreamWorks, which was the studio that owned this at the time, had they not wanted to go with the more family-friendly film to compete with Stuart Little, which was being released in December when this was being released, and to also get more money, kind of the same way that the Rugrats movie did, which was also distributed by DreamWorks at the time. So it sucks that there's a lot of studio interference here, but hey, it is what it is. That's just kind of what happens. Some other kind of like behind the scenes stuff, like obviously this pays homage to Star Trek and everything like that. Are there a lot of Trekkies in here, or like big Star Trek fans in here?
I'm a fan.
I'm a fan.
I mean,
yeah,
Not a big.
Enjoy-
I wouldn't go Trekkie, but fan.
Yeah.
I
enjoy
I
it.
wouldn't go to their convention or anything like that, but
Mm. Fun fact:
Wait,
I've been
did
to a
Dan say
convention.
that? What the fuck? Where guy shits on Star Wars all this time and
Yeah.
everything else we
Now
talk
we
about. He's
know
like,
why.
Star Trek.
I shit.
Okay.
I've never shit on Star Wars. That's all in your head.
Matt, you were saying you've been to a convention?
I have been to a Star Trek convention with my
That is
father.
not surprising.
With
That
my
is not
father, but
surprising at all.
That is out of left field. I would have never
So
guessed.
we'll get back to that. We can get
Well,
back.
yes, I want to hear more about that. So, um, the this movie is very much beloved by Star Trek fans, which is great because it kind of makes fun of Star
Yeah.
Trek fans in a lot of ways, which I think rightfully so. It does, and I think this is a good
Did-
precursor to, just talking about the toxicity of fandom in general, because this movie kind of just shows like the good stuff when it comes to fandom when it's, very devoted group of fans, not at all jerks or anything like that. It's pre-internet fandom. And yeah, that's love to see that. Harold Ramis was originally supposed to direct this, and then he dropped out once he found out Tim Allen was cast in the lead role. Um, Later, he ended up saying that Tim Allen did a pretty good job of it. He also Harold Ramis also left the project because of creative differences, because he wanted this to be a little bit more like Spaceballs and not just talking a little bit more about like behind the scenes stuff. So curious to see where that came from and how it ended up from that pitch initially to what we got. And let's see. Like Sigourney Weaver originally didn't wasn't supposed to be cast in the role, and she lobbied to be in the role because she wanted it to be more representative of how women are depicted in science fiction, and she kept like the the fake cleavage and the blonde wig.
That was fake.
It was
Don't do that. Don't ruin the movie.
It's real if I can touch him.
If I can touch it, it's real.
you can touch it, it's real. Okay. Tim,
Pretty
you
sure
can
that would
edit
come with
part
some
out.
kind of a law officer involved and perhaps a restraining order.
Let's see. At a convention in 2013, Star Trek fans voted this the seventh best Star Trek movie.
I love
So
that.
that's great. J.J. Abrams liked this so much that he did use kind of one of the concepts in this in the Star Trek reboot, where Fred gets Jason off the planet right on time, and just like beams him up. Kind of use that as a platform where Chekhov gets Kirk and Sulu off the signal jamming device in the Star Trek reboot, which I thought was cool that J.J. Abrams liked this movie so much that wanted to pay homage to it that way. And then the last bit I'll say is that this movie is one of the first movies to have its own website, because internet, dawn of the internet. Like this and Space Jam have often been credited as having, among some of the first websites for a movie, and them being comically bad websites. The website for this, if you look at old pictures, it looks like a fan did it, not like a professional. So
They did that on purpose, right?
part of it was on purpose, but like even like creating like a fake webmaster name and everything like that, but it still was, I don't know. I think it started off as serious, and then they just found out later it's like, yeah, we need to go full tilt into this. And then I'll recommend, there's a documentary out there. It's called Never Surrender. It's about it's kind of the making of Galaxy Quest. It's available on Amazon. Check it out. But Whildin, great pick. Love this movie. Yeah, that's it.
Good. I'm glad you liked it. This is I don't have the best ever since recording, I don't necessarily have the best record of picking cult classics from the 90s. So um I I kind of know what you mean as far as like the of Star Trek fans like being made fun of but loving this anyways. It's kind of like the show Portlandia just straight up makes fun of Portland. And I was there 13, 14 years ago, and they were displaying Portlandia openly. Like, look at this show, it makes fun of us and it's accurate. Isn't it amazing? Like they had no problem with it whatsoever. They liked it. So some people just have a good sense of humor about themselves, I guess. All right. So next up, I'm gonna spin the wheel there. I'll just spin it. Ugh, that wasn't a very good spin. I'm sorry.
Wheel of Destiny on Mike Wilden's phone comes up with and lands on
Tim Larson.
Boo.
Tim Larson. No, that seems uncalled for. A lot of hostility today. A lot of hostility. I did, Mike. I was wondering, as I was really enjoying watching this. This is a delightful movie. I love this movie. I was wondering if you were bracing for a second round of oh, these guys hated this movie that I really loved. From what the hell's the name of that movie? I've drawn a blank.
Winnie
Chris
the Pooh,
Katane.
Blood and
Night,
Honey.
Night at the Roxbury.
Night at the
So
Roxbury.
I wasn't really too worried about it because Night at the Roxbury is a movie I grew up with, like as far as high school and everything that I loved.
Mhm.
Galaxy Quest I saw one time in the theaters, so when I was 11, and I haven't seen it since, so I didn't
man.
have as much of an attachment to it.
Oh, this is great. And Nikki does not watch many of these movies with me. I tell her which movie it is every time, and sometimes she is like, "Ooh, maybe I'll watch that," but whatever. And she was like, "It's Galaxy Quest," and she tried her hardest to figure out how she could make the time to watch this one with me. So you even got Nikki interested in
Sweet.
watching one of our movies. God, where to start here? There's a Galaxy Quest. So it's kind of, what genre do you even call this, right? It's kind of a parody comedy, right? I think we just kind of leave it right there. It's like a science fiction
Yeah,
parody
so-
comedy.
Yeah.
And it's just fucking perfect the way it is. I read that too, Hilty, that they originally had this being a little bit darker and it was rated R and there was more action scenes and stuff. And I think I would be interested in seeing that, but I just kind of wish they would, like even when you talk about making a sequel, just leave it alone because it's really, really good, exactly the way it is. So there's of course a connection to Star Trek, and then I couldn't help but reflecting on watching Big Bang Theory and how much those guys loved Star Trek while I was watching this, and I haven't seen Galaxy Quest in years, so that was a funny sort of new vantage point to be watching this movie through, is thinking about nerds like on Big Bang Theory celebrating their nerddom, kind of like a little Matt Smith and his dad going to a convention. So, and then I couldn't help, I also just making another connection, and this one's a stretch, but there's a little bit of Never Ending Story in this for me also, because in Never Ending Story, it's the whole world that you're in is powered by kids' imagination and whatever. And this whole world is powered by the old TV show, which is, you just accept it right away. It's the most ridiculous premise for a movie, but you just accept it right away and go, oh, okay, they're in space. That's fine. And I like that they didn't even try to apologize and explain it away and give some scientific basis for how it works. They just flew through in some goo and showed up on the spaceship, and everything worked really well. I think Tim Allen is a perfect cast for a William Shatner type character. Just crushed it. And there's a couple of trivia things. That the scene where Tim Allen is in the bathroom and the guys are like, what a bunch of losers, they haven't had a real job in 8 years. That actually did happen to William Shatner. Like that's a real story thing that they kind of put in here. And another one is Sigourney Weaver's character is talking about, she had an interview with TV Guide, and they're like, it's 6 paragraphs about how my boobs could fit in the suit. That actually happened to Jerry Ryan as well. So I love that they took real life things about this subject matter, like these actors and the fame of being in these roles being somewhat of a spoof on their own professional careers or lives or whatever, that they put that in the movie. It's perfect. And speaking of perfect, we have not watched a movie with Sam Rockwell in it that somebody has disliked. I mean, Sam Rockwell is just gold for this movie group.
Mm-hmm.
And I laugh out loud every time he screams after he shows up in space. I can't help myself. I just burst out laughing. And I read today in the trivia that Sigourney Weaver had no idea he was about to do that. And so I rewatched that scene, and when he screams, she visually like shakes and like because she didn't see it coming. And so that's not actress, that's not Gwen's character. That is Sigourney Weaver freaking out to Sam Rockwell yelling. And I fucking love that. I think the music is great that they came up with a TV themed song to go with this show. And then
I
they
had that
used
song
it
stuck in my head all
for,
day
it's
yesterday
so
after I
good,
watched
man.
it.
It's just really good. There's, um, and then I'll say one more thing because I could go on all day. The actors playing the aliens are outstanding. And apparently, the dude playing Mathesar, his name is Enrico Colantoni or Colantani or how I don't know how to pronounce it. I've never seen the name before. He went into the casting and just started doing that. Like, this is my take on how an alien would act like this. And they stopped what they were doing and started showing that to all the other actors. And like, this is how you're going to act as the alien. Like, he just did that for the casting, and they went with it. And I'm so glad he did because it's so fucking funny watching them talk. And that girl, what is her name? Missy Pyle. When he's first in the limo and she says my translator's off, they got so many good jokes out of this premise. It was just the movie's gold. I just absolutely love it. I'm glad you picked it. I'm glad I watched it. Great pick, Mike. Nice job.
Thank
How many
you.
times have you seen it before, Tim?
How many times have I seen? Probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 7 to 10.
Okay, so this isn't like the second time you watched.
No, If this is on, I stop changing channels and I turn it up and I yell Nikki.
Nice.
However, now when you say the rest of the time you pick people to say things, discuss their take on the movie, I'm gonna repeat their name like they did on the ship when they were introduced to the cast. They always just kind of go like, Dan, So I'm gonna, as soon as you do that, I'm gonna do that. If you guys want to join in, please feel free.
So my favorite moments on screen, I mean, there were a few random ones, but generally my favorite moments on screen were anytime Alan Rickman was on screen
Yeah.
or the aliens. I agree completely. And I think the reason they're so good at it is just because they commit to the bit. I think there's a lot to be said about committing to the bit. Yeah, I know there's an interview with Bryan Cranston where he was talking about whether it's, humor or sadness or any kind of emotion, like there's got to be a certain level of, I guess, restriction to it. But just if you take your role seriously, especially in comedy, if your character stops and goes, "Look at how ridiculous I am," you're taking the laugh away from the audience. But when you can commit to the seriousness, you open them up for the laugh. And all the people that played the aliens just did phenomenal at it. Every time, like at the end when they're doing the new cast, of the show once it gets rebooted, and that alien girl like turns around awkwardly with a smile. There was that all the entire movie, but I laughed every time that happened. And then like when they first meet him at the convention, and he like kind of like pokes at him, and he just goes, "Bah!" Like just it was just, oh God, they were just so good at doing something so goofy and awkward and weird. I loved it.
I do
And
agree. I do agree with you on the Alan Rickman thing. It's because Alan Rickman, he took a lot of his interpretation of the role, and he kind of channeled a little bit of Patrick Stewart's frustration for being a classically trained theater actor and him being best known for like a sci-fi
Yeah.
role. And you could tell that Alan Rickman, he's, kind of brings a lot more gravity to the role as opposed to some of the other people because, he's got that like a lot of scenes at the end where he's talking about how, you know, he doesn't really understand or he doesn't like saying his catchphrase, you shall be avenged or anything like that. But then he says it at the end and it finally like sinks in a little bit. It's like, oh, this is why I say it. That part of the movie does not work if Alan Rickman doesn't commit to it.
Well,
Agreed.
another guy that commits to the bit. I mean, I love even when like they're all talking on the phone in the beginning. He's just like in his apartment in his underwear and a t-shirt, but he's still wearing the alien head. Like it's just,
Yeah.
it's just goofy.
Hey, one
And
more
then
character. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say when they like when they're starving of oxygen and they rescue all the aliens and he walks in like, hey, yeah, he rescues them and the Captain Taggart has rescued us and you just see him go, oh, like it's just I just lost it.
One more character thing that I read that I'd never thought of before or noticed. Maybe you guys saw it and it's just something I missed because I'm stupid. Tony Shalhoub's
True.
character. No, that wasn't. I didn't say it yet. You have to wait until I say it.
Oh.
Tony Shalhoub's character was written to be high the entire movie. Like he's always chewing on some snacks. He like comes through space. He's like, that was a thing. And I
Oh,
never.
is that why he's always so
He's always
mellow?
mellow and
Calm, yeah.
But they took
and
it.
Oh,
it's not part of the script at all. There's no reason for you to know it other than reflecting on it after. And I think that's fucking genius that they did that because once I read that, I was like, of course he's high all the time.
I
Well,
wrote
there's a
that down
couple-
in my notes. I'm like, why is he always so calm and mellow about everything? And everybody else is freaked out about it.
Seeing his name, what was it, Quan or something like that?
Yeah.
I was gonna ask if anybody else, like, I was gonna ask why, and I've noticed it before. Like before, I've thought it like just what you were saying, like he was just chill, like nothing bothered him.
Right.
But this time, I got more of an idiot. It was like they were making him into an idiot, and it was because of one of my lines that I love when they're on the mining planet, and are they miners? And he was like, yeah, they look like they're about 3, and then they spell minor and minor, and he's like, you lost me. I'm like, he's not calm, he's an idiot, like that's what I thought. He was like nerves of steel, but this time watching it for whatever, I was like, are they making him an idiot? Is it like, is that the joke? Is he's supposed to be a technical, the engineer guy, and he's like actually really dumb in real life? But I like the high much better. I like that.
Yep.
He's supposed to be high.
We think in the engine room and he's coming, he's like, hey man, these guys are saying like it's broke and stuff.
I think we
And
should go with that.
also you got to be
last
high to
com-
go into space and have sex with an alien. Like,
Well, and then when he gets
Makes perfect
zapped in,
sense. Pre-game.
I think he's right after Sam Rockwell, and then he gets zapped in and it's like, awesome,
That was
or
something.
whatever. That happened.
Yeah.
So last comment before I spin here is I agree Sam Rockwell is a gem. He might be my favorite actor. I'm not sure, but he's definitely a contender for it. All right. So here we go. Next up, we are going to hear from, let's see, Dan Sears.
And
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
And
I was worried about watching this movie because I saw it, maybe 3 times in the early 2000s and I loved it. And I thought I'm going to watch it now and it's not going to hold up and it's going to, give me bad memories of it. But the complete opposite. I still love it. I still think it holds up. I think it's excellent for what it is. It's just a fun comedy parody and I really, really like it. Just some funny things that you see throughout the movie. Like right at the beginning, Tim Allen, when he comes in and they're signing the autographs, all the other, characters have a big table they're all sitting at, and he has a separate, really big table by himself. And just little things like that, just so funny in this movie. And I read that they definitely did the character after Captain Kirk, because they said that's what he did on set a lot of times. He wanted to be in the spotlight and he always would want to get the best lines and everything. And that's what
you could totally see that. If you know anything about his
Oh, yeah.
personality, you could totally see that.
Yep. and and that's one of Rickman's lines in the movie. He's like, you always get the best lines and you always get the best, scenes.
I thought it was kind of funny when Tim Allen's character gets like taken by all the little like minor goblin things and they're flying away, and Alan Rickman still is just like, "Oh, it's all about you."
yeah. But yeah, I love all the actors in this. I think they all, man, did a really good job. But yeah, tons of Easter eggs in this movie about Star Trek and other sci-fi stuff from the 70s and 80s. I definitely think that, I was a big fan of Buck Rogers in the 25th century back in the day.
Oh,
I
you're
definitely
dating
think
yourself
they,
here, Dan.
I know.
That's a long time ago.
I think they based Sigourney Weaver's character off of Erin Gray in that show because she wore the jumpsuit, the skin tight jumpsuit. But man, just a lot of fun lines in this movie. When we were talking about getting off the planet, and they're like, "Hurry up, let's get off the planet before they kill a guy." That's what they did in Star Trek. They always had Captain Kirk beam down and Spock, and then Ensign Joe, and it was always Ensign Joe. They got killed.
Yeoman Gates.
Yeoman Gates.
Yeah.
Red shirts. The joke was always the
yeah.
red
He always
shirt.
had the same color shirt on, right?
Yeah.
Yep. And at the end there, when they're going through, they have to go through the chompers, just a straight shot through the chompers, and you're home free. And it's like, why is this in the movie? Why would we put this in an episode? Let's see. Yeah, that's too bad that Rickman died, and they were thinking about doing a sequel, and that kind of put it all on the back burner. Because I think this movie is definitely needs a sequel. I don't know if they should do the same actors though. Now that Rickman's gone, I think maybe they should do a sequel with different actors, maybe like the Next Generation kind of thing, and have different people doing it. Maybe the aliens come back and they're all like still the same age, but then all the people on Earth are different. I don't know. Just kind of thinking out loud. What else we got here? I think they took Sigourney Weaver's line from Aliens, because she says something about going through all the duct work, that they
why is
filmed
it
in
always
Aliens.
duct work? Yeah.
Yeah, she said that. Yep. So I think they took that from that. When they're eating, when Tim Allen's eating the steak, he says, this is the best Iowa corn-fed beef I've ever had, and that's what Captain Kirk was from. He was from Iowa.
Nice.
But just a bunch of little things like that. And one thing that actually was true back in the 60s, 70s. People thought Gilligan's Island, some people, was real, and some people mounted a rescue mission to try and go out and find them. So they do that, in this movie. They say, hey, those poor people on Gilligan's Island, they're still out there. But yeah, just a fun movie. Still like it after all these years. One last thing I noticed, when what's his name, the alien Salazar, he when he starts shooting everybody at the end, Rockwell's just standing in one stagnant spot, and everybody else is running around like trying to dive out of the way and get shot, and the whole time he was just standing in one spot, never moved. I thought that was pretty funny. I think he was like, petrified by fear, and he never moved. But good pick. Still like it. Glad I watched it again.
I'm glad. I think one of my favorite lines is Sigourney Weaver's, where she keeps repeating everything that the computer's saying, like back and forth and back and forth, and they're like, "That's getting really annoying." She goes, "Look, I have one job. It's dumb, but I'm gonna do it, okay?" Like, I appreciate that a lot. What's does anybody have like a particularly favorite line that stands out to them?
Well, I had already said I like the minor back and forth.
Yeah.
You know, I've always liked that, and I never thought it really made him look stupid. And I don't know if I never got the last part of it where he's like, "You lost me." I'm like, in spelling the words, you know. So it was kind of mildly irritating that they made him like, I was thinking an idiot, and I like that he was high.
If I
There's a
had
line that Tony Shabbat says. The show Monk hadn't come out yet.
Shalhoub?
Shalhoub.
Shalhoub.
Shabbat.
Yeah. Whatever. You know.
Shalom.
That's Jewish stuff, isn't it?
Shibapaluba.
But he says when he comes on the ship, he says, "Look at how clean the floors are," and that's totally something that the Monk character would say.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
If
The
I
other one would be when they're like, you know, there's no quantum flux, there's no auxiliary, there's no goddamn ship or whatever. I don't know if they throw in goddamn, but like, it's all made up.
as soon as this movie comes up and I have to quote it, my first go-to is, "Oh, that's not right," and that's Sam Rockwell once again.
Rockwell. Yeah.
Yep.
I did like the part at the end when Gwen when Gwen and Jason are trying to get through that part of the ship that has all like the parts that are like moving up and down, and she just screams, "Whoever wrote this episode should die." Because like who the hell writes something like that and then has to actually like go through something like that? So I chuckled as I rewatched this today, you know, partially when I was hanging out with you, Whildin, earlier. Yeah, that,
But you
that's
can
one of my
totally
favorites.
see that set up in you know, the third season of
Oh,
26th
absolutely.
episode.
Right.
You know,
Absolutely.
we need some suspense. We need them to get from here to here, but we need you know, we need to do it like between commercials, you know, like not, you know, we need an act. I don't know if they call it acts, but you know, whatever. We need to draw it out. They can't just get to the second deck.
Well, the Simpsons have come up quite a few times in this group because there's some big fans of the Simpsons here. And I was thinking about that a little bit today. Like, there's got to be, like, you guys frequently talk about your favorite Simpsons episode, or when this thing was referred to on the show. But there's got to be some that you think are pretty bad also. I thought of that show specifically when I saw like the Choppers thing. Like, there's the shows that go for that long probably have some clunkers. Like, you can't get away from it. You know, your favorite show's got to have a couple of clunkers in it. And that's probably for another time, but I would be interested to hear some of you guys talk about some clunkers from some of your favorite shows.
Well, The Simpsons
As far-
specifically,
as-
I've seen, like, there are more episodes of it that I have not
Mhm.
seen than
Okay.
episodes I have, because it's gone on so long. Because, you know, the first 10, 11, 12 seasons or whatever, it's, you know, just so great, and it's a completely different show when it goes on for that long.
Mm.
But let's move on here.
Larson, as far
Wheel
as I'm
spinning.
concerned, The Simpsons have not been, you know, gone on past season 10.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
Agreed.
Wilden, one other thing that one other quote, or it's not really so much a quote, it's actually something. I love that Justin Long actually had to take out the recycling when his mom yelled at him
Yeah.
about that. And then like 10 minutes later, he does legit do it. I don't know why. I just found that part hilarious because most of the time he's just gonna get yelled at and that's it. And then for him to actually go do it, I found that to be hilarious.
Nice. I didn't even recognize that was Justin Long at first either. All right, so we've got Aaron.
Aaron.
Sorry.
Thank you. Funny you bring that up right now, Hilty, that I get picked, because I'm gonna push back a little bit on what you said, and I was waiting my turn to do so. I don't want to say that you had mentioned that, or you had framed it as it's kind of shitting on Trekkies, and I know you didn't use that, but kind of making fun of them, or man, I think this is a Trekkies fan fiction wet dream movie. Just because of the Justin Long character and his friends. like because they know the schematics and they get to save the day of this
Yeah.
TV show that they love. I mean, it's the ultimate, it's like, this is why I've loved this show, and I, don't have a girlfriend and whatever,
It's kind of both, isn't it? It's kind of
this
both.
all
Right?
justifies it. Well, I could see somebody thinking that because of Galaxy Quest, I was thinking about putting this, Star Trek thing down, but
Hey, it's time to get the
Shatner
uniform
might
out. I'm gonna
need
get it
me
dry
one
cleaned.
day.
There is actually I read some trivia that there is a couple Star Trek fan fiction things that are included in the script. So, Aaron, you're not wrong that to push back on me, because you're right. I just kind of look at it from the perspective of the way that, like, at the beginning in particular, when it's very clear that none of them want to be at the convention. And
Right. Yeah. But, and that's not the fans' fault. I get the actors, they're jaded and bitter, and the whole, this is what I'm known for. I did Shakespeare in the Park and, had 5 curtains or whatever. I totally get that. And, but this is what makes your boat payment, showing up to these twice a year, and it's not a little boat. We're not talking a fishing boat, so they hate it, but they love it and they need it, and some more than others, but I love that whole dynamic of the whole thing. And this was before Comic-Con. San Diego Comic-Con was probably already huge, and people knew about it, and if you needed or wanted the new Star Wars Insight, I mean, this is before Marvel was dropping things and all that stuff. So them doing the whole Comic-Con scene was pretty cool for nerds. And I put myself in that category. I'm not like, punching down or whatever. I'm down with the nerds.
I went to the Chicago one this year in April. It was the first time doing that. Like now it's like a big deal to go to one of those. It's awesome.
Right. And I mean, we've got a Blue Water one that they've got, like, it's nobody known, like Darren McCarty, who around here, hockey hero, and he'll show up to everything. Like he's been at just like a couple random bars, but it's like, I think this is probably the 3rd or 4th year. Brian, do you know of the Blue Water Comic-Con?
I'm gonna
It's
say
only
it's been around, like, I'm gonna say 5.
5. Okay. And I've never gone, and I'm ashamed about that. And like, I just saw it on Facebook again today. Another ad came up, and I'm like, I got to go support it, because that's the only way they're going to get bigger, better people.
I've got free tickets. If you want to go, we'll go.
But free doesn't help them. But yeah, even just going and buying some merch or whatever. You know what I mean? No, I totally get it. But you understand what I'm saying too. Like the free tickets, they're already paid, they're already accounted for. So I don't know.
I
But
meant
yeah.
free to
Oh,
you.
dude, the entry ticket is not where they're making their most money. Trust
Okay.
me. I spent a little bit on my entry ticket. I spent a lot when I was there on
Well, yeah,
all
just
the
to
different
get
bullshit
people
I
in
kept
there, and they
going.
can say we got, we went up from 2,000 to 4,000 in 2
Yeah.
years or whatever.
Yeah, the convention people, they make their money off the vendor tables that they're
Right.
charging $1,000
for
a
sure.
table.
But there's also got
Well,
to, like, they pay out for, don't they? So like to get, I don't know who would even be alive. It's bad. I can't think of any of their, they would never get a Worf, but say Worf.
Michael Dorn.
Michael Dorn. They're giving him what, $5,000 up front.
Yeah.
Or, and they got to make a lot of money before they're going to shell out that kind of money, because, they got the guy who wrote the music for an episode, and, like deep fans would know, but I don't think there's anybody like out of these 7 people would ever even have heard of, other than Darren McCarty. Brian, do you know if, like, there's not even like somebody who did the score for season 5 of Deep Space Nine, or whatever. It's all very obscure. That's what I'm going for. But anyway, Comic-Cons. I think it was great that they brought light onto it. I should go to one, went off on another.
Off the rails.
It's been a little while since you've done that. I enjoyed that.
Anyway, I want to support nerds and nerd shit because I am one. So I already pushed back on Hilty. What else? So great pick. Love the movie. Love the whole setup. Love the premise. Somebody already mentioned the streamlininess of it all was very well done, well thought out for the time, not getting hung up on how'd they get here? How does that, wormhole work? How does that, they're covered in the goo and it just gets in there. Who cares? Like we're not trying to break it down. If this was a TV show that ran for 5 years, then yeah, they, want to pull all that apart. But right now it just is, deep space communicators, whatever, it's all great. I love the idea of the pilot, growing up and having to remember what he did as a kid. And I like how they had him go back and just watch the episodes because they based all the movements like on what he did. And it was great that he was a kid when he did it because he believed it as a kid. So I want to believe his movements and stuff, he did the same every time. If he was going forwards, back, left, right, whatever. As a kid, he thought he was flying that thing or pretending he was flying that thing as a child actor. So by watching it and learning it and, the aliens watching it and learning it, it all matching up. I like that.
They drew out that scene so well when he's taking the ship out of the dock.
Oh, just
they took so much time to make it so awkward. It was fucking fantastic. You could every other one of the actors is like nodding their head to the side, like, "Hey, dude, we're not gonna. Okay, we're just all right. Let's see what happens."
But I also like all of them knowing what needs to happen. But it's what he did as a kid
right?
That those guys based it on. So like nobody could help him. Like there's nobody there and they brought it up. There was another thing that they had, never done because they built it. Oh, I think it was the teleporter in one way or another. It wasn't the goo teleporter. It was the other one where they pulled him off the surface. And they're like, yeah, we've never got it to work, on your species or whatever.
Yeah. And the alien shows up inside out. And that's the first thing they bring up.
Yeah. That dog thing.
Never been tested successfully.
Yeah. So just tons of stuff like that. I thought the writing, it was great. It starts off, we've already talked about them fighting backstage. Some of them need it. Some of them don't want it. Some of them need it, but don't want it. Who somebody brought up Alan Rickman's, didn't use the term gravitas, but a different version of that, what he brought to kind of the show. In real life, and I'm going with that with Sigourney Weaver too. Like, how does she end up on this show? How does she end up in this movie? Because she's a serious, not just sci-fi actor. I mean, she's well respected in the sci-fi community. But like she's a serious actor, and it's like she's got blonde hair and big fake tits in this, and 100%. Doesn't phone in a single scene. Like when she's screaming about, and it was already brought up, I know, my job is to repeat the computer and it's dumb, but I'm doing it, her, and this is almost getting into Tropic Thunder stuff. Her as an actor, playing the actor who's trying to do it the best they can, it's like there's layers, and it's great. The other thing we were talking about, the aliens that we like, the good guys, the Therians. So it was close to Terrestrians or something like that.
Thermians.
I like how they were basically wearing Edgar suits. from Men in Black, because that they didn't look like humans, but they were just trying to look like humans. So like when they were walking, they've got, and we forget they've got like all these other arms and shit that they're trying to like either hide or, whatever. So I I kept thinking of the Facebook guy, the
Zuckerberg.
yeah, Zuckerberg, and they always say like, he's an alien, or he's trying to be a human when he's trying to drink water, and it's like he read a book about how humans drink water, and he's trying to drink water like a human. I got that from these guys. It was fantastic. I loved, and the story about the main one coming in and just making that up, and that became like, yeah, this is how we're doing it from now on.
Yeah.
Great. Rainn Wilson and Ted being background aliens, come on, and I'm sure there was a lot of others that I didn't know, like I recognized, but I didn't know stuff they were from. But Ted, right away, I'm like, that's fucking Ted. And then like in the next, like they turn the camera a little bit, and I'm like, that's what's his name from The Office. So yeah, loved it. Same thing somebody else said. I was worried that I hadn't watched it in probably a couple years. I didn't know if I'd still like it, and still loved it. It was great. Loved every bit of it. So
Awesome.
good pick.
Yeah. Yeah, Dan was saying that same thing earlier. I'm glad you guys still enjoyed it. All right. Last spin, because there's two left. There we go. Next up, we will hear from Matt Smith.
Matt.
Real quick, Matt, before you talk about the movie, tell us about the Comic-Con, or not the
Yeah.
Comic-Con, the Trek, the Star Trek.
Yeah, I guess convention is a strong word. So they had they called it a convention. So I guess I have to call it a convention, but I don't even remember how old I was. I'm old enough to remember, obviously. So background, my dad, big Trekkie. I grew up loving Star Wars, but we watched The Next Generation every Sunday night or whatever. I actually looked forward to it. It was one of my favorite shows. But anyway, so they did this thing. I think it was at the Harris Casino in Joliet, if you're familiar with the area. There's a casino boat. Anyway, and William Shatner was going to be there. And so my dad, being a fan of the original series, like, I want to go. Do you want to go with me? And I said, sure. So it wasn't super exciting. A lot of vendors. They didn't have any of the other actors there. It was more like video tributes and here's what's coming up in the, because at the time they were still making movies, and Next Generation actually might have still been on the air. I can't remember. Again, I don't remember what year this was. And then we were going to see William Shatner talk. That was the big deal. And he was over an hour late, funny enough.
Sure.
And then when he got there, he didn't take any questions. It was just him talking for like 20 minutes. And then there was like an MC who asked him a couple questions, and that was it. And it was like, oh, this is great. And so it was at that point, some of the things you heard about William Shatner at that time, you totally went, oh yeah, I see that. I see that he's just kind of a big jerk. But transitioning then.
That sounds almost exactly like the opuning of the movie. I was going to ask if
Right.
Shatner then
Right,
got
yeah.
abducted by real aliens.
He might have. I don't know if you saw him after that, but no, he pulled, like, he did Boston Legal,
Denny Crane.
and he did a couple other like cameo type things.
He did a 1-year sitcom called Shit My Dad Says,
Yeah.
Oh, he did
which
that?
was hilarious. Yeah.
He was
He
the
was the
dad,
dad.
right?
Shit My Father Says is
Yeah.
how it was, but yes, he was
I
the
remember
father.
following that. That guy started on Facebook, just putting up
Yep.
posts. Shit, my dad says, and then it got sort of syndicated. I didn't know that Shatner did that. That's awesome.
Yeah, so transitioning into the movie then, I get I first of all, I like this movie a lot. I've actually only seen it 2 or 3 times, including
Matt.
this one.
before you get going, was
Aaron.
your dad disappointed in what happened on the
Oh,
casino
yeah,
boat?
he was
I didn't know if that was enough for
and
him.
he was like my my dad's a good dude. He he never speaks ill of people if he can avoid it. He was pissed. And then I didn't get to see my dad pissed a lot. He was pissed. He got pissed at three people that I know of in my whole life. My aunt, my not his sister,
Oh,
my mother's sister.
Uh-huh.
He called her a choice name that shall not be repeated. Well, he called her a bitch. But anyway,
oh,
and then he got mad at my sister quite often, who is not his child, is his like, but she grew up with us. And then William Shatner. So kind of a weird trifecta there. Yes, he was very upset. He was probably more upset than me, because to me, I'm like, okay, whatever, like, cool. I didn't watch the original series. I don't care. But yeah, anyway.
and that was my image. I was like, you as an 11-year-old or what you said, you're like, this kind of blows. And you look up and he's like, this was awesome. Did you have a great time? But no. it's
No,
the opposite.
he was self-aware. He knew. So anyway, so as far as the movie goes, I love this. I
Oh
love
no,
this.
no, no. I'm not done processing. My dad got mad at three people. My aunt who wasn't his sister, my sister who wasn't his daughter, and William Shatner. This could be a spoken word
That's-
poem at a
that's the
cafe.
title
You
of the
could bring the
book.
house down.
Should write a book.
Yeah.
Um,
That's a premise for a great joke.
I don't know. What was I saying? Oh, the movie. No, I think this movie actually has the like one of the best portrayals of like you guys were talking about fandom, and they weren't like shown as toxic in here, but there was definitely like the implication was here's a bunch of weirdos who all they do is watch these old episodes, and these kids come up and talk about how there's no way there can be this quantum blah 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 on the fourth floor because on the schematics it says that, and that happens that and to get back to the Simpsons, somebody asked the question like clunkers. The Simpsons was very self-aware. Like if something didn't make sense in The Simpsons, they would actually call themselves out. They'd be like, "Yeah, it's best if you don't think about it." Like they would look at the camera and they'd go, Probably don't think about it."
Yeah,
But they
like Maggie shooting Mr. Burns. They made fun of themselves for that so
for,
many times.
for years they made fun
I
of
knew you
themselves.
guys couldn't not do this. I knew you couldn't not do this throughout this
Hey,
episode.
you're the one that brought it up
I
originally.
did. I did.
But
it.
I watched this year's Treehouse of Horrors tonight. It was on tonight. So just so you guys know, they're still doing that every year.
They even make
Oh,
fun
yeah.
of this kind of stuff. Comic book guy is literally the toxic fandom. Like he's the one who goes to the panels and goes, why did so and so use this shirt on and they're like, man, you guys are nerds, like
His
they're
catchphrase is worst episode ever.
right. So anyway, so I like the movie in the fact that that kind of shows that, and it shows, going back to my previous story, like as much as William Shatner was a jerk, I also understand like he had to like deal with probably the craziest of crazy
Yeah.
people like all the time. And obviously this is mostly pre-internet, so it wasn't maybe as intense, but like people coming up to him all the time and saying just stupid stuff to him. Like, dude, it's a TV show. Let it go. Like, no, I don't know why we flew through the gamma sector instead of the alpha. I don't know. Leave me alone, So I'm sure there's some of that, but it also paid his bills. So he had that weird, like, do I go to this and make a little money so I can pay off the bills or so anyway, that all aside, I really liked the movie. I thought it wasn't truly a parody because I think a parody would be if the show Galaxy Quest was the movie, right? Like if they actually and made fun of all those tropes, but they sort of did that within a real movie with a real message, and some really good what's the right word? Just morals isn't the right word. I just can't think of the word, but just like it all made sense, like the Sigourney Weaver character being the only woman, being, obviously enhanced to appeal to their probably 99.9% of their audience, which was young males. Um, the 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 character who's doesn't even have a last name. I don't even have a last name. I'm gonna die. I don't have a last name. Look, that's like and Tim Allen being kind of the Bill Shatner. I just thought it was a good homage while also telling a really good story about these people exist and this stuff happens and it's okay to laugh at it, but at the same time, like I'm sure it got weird for them at some point. I always kind of thought Alan Rickman's character, they tried to fit it in as like Patrick Stewart. So Patrick Stewart, English, big Shakespearean guy, and he gets this job as Captain Picard on this show. He doesn't even think it's going to go very far. Didn't even unpack his suitcase, I believe, for the whole first season of that show. And it ends up being this like just cult, not even cult, just this huge hit. And I thought that was kind of his character. Although Patrick Stewart embraced it a little bit more, I think. I think, especially in his later years, came back and did a bunch of stuff, did the new TV show, stuff like that. But anyway, yeah, I just really liked it a lot. I like the message that it sent. I like that it could make fun of itself and also make fun of fandom, but also have a little heart and a little message there. Like, you know, these are people. These are yes, they're just actors. They're doing their job. Probably gets really annoying to hear that, but or hear all the stuff they hear, but it also is it means something to these other people, right? It means something to these fans. It means something to them. So, um, yeah, I don't, you guys have covered everything else, I think. I was going to mention Rainn Wilson, but obviously somebody already mentioned that. Um, thought that was funny. He was in there. And then the guy who played the alien, which was Sasser or something. I don't think it was Salazar. It was something else.
Saris or something like
Saris.
Saris. Yeah, there you go. He does a lot of voiceover work because if you look at the actor and you look at that character, you're like, that doesn't make sense. But it's because of his voice. He does a lot of voiceover work. He does a lot of video game work. So I think that's probably why they chose him. Favorite lines. I don't call me corny. It's a little corny, but when Alan
You're corny.
Rickman, thanks. When Alan Rickman does the line at the end when he says he's gonna avenge the guy, I just love that. I think it's great. By
It's a slow clap. It's
yeah,
exactly a slow
by
clap.
Thragnar's hammer or whatever he says, I will avenge you. I just thought that was great. And yes, slow clap. Exactly, Aaron. It's the slow clap.
We
I
needed it. We knew it was coming. We needed it. We wanted it.
And it was great. It was perfect. So, yeah, so great pick. Glad I watched it again. Good stuff.
Good. I'm just looking that actor is Robin Sachs, and I was just trying to see if, real quick if I could find anything that I recognized him in. But um, yeah, I so real quick, favorite one of my favorite comic book guy moments. When he's like it's a Halloween special since you mentioned it, Aaron. Um, when they like get in the like France sends a nuke to Springfield and it goes directly at comic book guy. And he's like walking down the street reading. He's like, "But Aquaman, you cannot marry a woman without gills. You're from two different worlds." And then he sees the missile coming at him. He just goes, "Oh, I've wasted my life," and like it blows up. Um, yeah, a couple people brought up Alan Rickman and like the classically trained actor thing. It's kind of been I can't remember if the group sent this meme or if I just happened to see this online. But there's some moment I guess where apparently like backstage where Tim Allen kind of started getting a little emotional at one of the scenes and he was kind of like, "I'm sorry, I got to go back to my trailer. I need a minute." And like he couldn't keep filming the scene for a little bit and so he left and I apparently Alan Rickman went, "Oh my God, I think he just experienced acting." I don't know if
He
that's true or not, but
he
that's a pretty great
he's
line.
Alan Rickman struggled a lot with Tim Allen, just kind of some of the on-set behavior, not like quite diva like William Shatner, but he still didn't appreciate some of the things that Tim Allen did on set. So I think he wrote either in a memoir or a diary or something like that this guy doesn't know what he's doing. And that's too bad because the rest of the cast bonded a lot. And it's just too bad that those two maybe didn't as much as some of the other cast did.
Yeah. All right.
Hang on,
Brian, you're
Mike.
the only. Oh,
Before you move on, just to throw it out there, just because Matt was talking about it and the whole Trekkie, so very much was around for the reruns of the original Star Trek, but I was a big fan of Next Generation. But I also think that Deep Space Nine is probably in my lifetime or whatever is the best series of all of them. And then I really liked Voyager too. So you were asking about like, do I consider myself a Trekkie? Absolutely not. But I do like a lot of Star Trek stuff.
You're knowledgeable.
Enjoy almost all the movies. So, but yeah, I was a huge fan of Deep Space Nine. So I don't know.
Aaron, have you seen any of the recent stuff?
No, like the Picard. I know that is that.
Picard was okay. Picard was okay.
Is there another like
There's
There's
three other
very
series.
serious live action? Because I know there's like Below Decks, and that's like a cartoon.
Yeah,
And I don't know if I'd be
Discovery
into that.
Yeah, Discovery is the
and Strange New Worlds is really good. It's
is
more
really
like
good,
it's
yeah.
more like Next Generation original series.
Yeah, I don't know if
Sounds
I've
pretty
ever
good.
even heard of that. So, but I did know Picard existed. I haven't watched any of it. Is that on Apple TV?
It's
it's all
Paramount.
on Paramount Plus.
Okay. Which I just recently got because my kid got it. So he's an adult and I have his password. So
All right.
so maybe I'll give that
All
a
right.
try. Wait, out of those, were you saying Picard wasn't great, Matt?
It was fine. It's 3 seasons, and it probably could have been 2. They kind of went rogue for a little while.
Was there a better one that was just named?
Strange New Worlds.
Strange
is
New
great.
Worlds is
Yeah,
probably
Strange New Worlds
the
is
best. And I'll
Lower
give a
Deck.
plug to Lower Decks as well. Is that if you did watch a lot of Star Trek shows, it's not making fun of it because at first that's what I thought that they were going for,
It
but
is
they're
animated,
paying.
right?
It is animated, but it pays tribute to a lot of things that for Star Trek fans to kind of glom onto. So it's
Cool.
I like Lower Decks a lot.
I believe
It's
there's a crossover
surprisingly funny.
with Strange New Worlds and Lower Decks as well,
there is.
which sounds funny to say, but
It does.
Hmm.
Cool.
nice. All right, Brian, you are up last. Bring us home,
Brian.
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 Tim, thank you. Thank you. Tim didn't say it. Dick. There's not much more to add. I mean, everybody's
Person to say,
said
what are you talking about?
a lot of. Sorry?
Nothing.
I
It's
was
just-
the first one to say Brian.
he was the first
said
person
Tim
to
didn't
say
say
it.
I
Brian.
think you said it. I'm sorry. I think you said it. Anyway,
Brian, you're
I don't know if
correct.
I just
Everybody
read that
else.
one.
I have hearing issues. I have hearing deficits. So I did a little bit of research about this movie. It came out in 1999.
good. You did
So,
say a little
after
research.
that-
Thank you.
no one had said that yet, so I wanted to add something.
I believe Tim
So-
said that right at the beginning.
No, he didn't.
Brian.
Brian.
This is the first time I saw the movie. I actually haven't seen it. Okay, sorry.
Sorry. Compose ourselves.
I think Aaron had a spit take. He had to leave.
Brian.
The scene with the chompers. And it kind of made sense when Hilty said that they wanted to make it lower rating so it was family friendly kind of thing. I read Sigourney Weaver's lips, and I am almost positive she said "fuck that"
You did.
in front of the choppers.
Oh.
Definitely
She did. She did.
Okay.
It is she purposely the dubbed line. She was instructed to say like screw that in the most awful way possible so that it looks like a really bad dub. And she did that in protest because the studio like moved it from rated R to like all the way down to PG. So you are correct.
Oh, that's great. Now, Brian, just for the record, what does it say on your whiteboard behind you?
Screw that.
Please dub that and say screw that.
Oh,
Got it.
that's going to be some work on that one because
Well,
that's just not the beeping.
you can't visualize it.
Right. You actually have to go steal the Sigourney Weaver saying, screw that and put that in.
Hey, anything that gets us a violation of copyright, I'm all for it.
So like I said, actually, this was the first time seeing the movie. Had watched it before and really enjoyed it. It's a sit down hour and 45 minutes that I don't mind at all. Looking up some stuff about Shatner, and he kind of made fun of Tim Allen, like I don't know who that is, knowing that Tim Allen was going over the top trying to be Shatner in the movie. I also saw some.
What a dick thing to say.
Huh?
Like, I mean, it goes right along with Shatner's personality, I guess, but just like that's, yeah. Sorry,
No,
go ahead.
and
Had he already done the Santa Claus and stuff? Like, I mean, people knew. Like he 1,000,000% knew who Tim Allen.
I read that too, and I took it as Shatner watched it and was like, I don't know who that Tim Allen guy was trying to be, but this is this person and this is that person. I thought he was doing like a joke, like it's very obviously him and he doesn't get it. I think that's what that quote is about.
Oh, my bad.
yeah, I absolutely. It wasn't who's this Tim Allen? It's who he's trying to portray in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
I see. Okay. All right. My bad.
Matt, I did a lot of comic book conventions when I was younger, and there was a Motor City Con that I went to that was in Dearborn, and Shatner was a guest there also. And it was basically the same thing. He showed up late, got on stage, told whatever story. And when he was done, he, just kind of, all right, see you later, and took off. And it was, yeah, similar situations. So I think that's his shtick now. But yeah, really good movie. Enjoyed it. And pretty much everyone covered things. I just did want to point out the fact that I read some with the hearing loss, you read lips better, I guess. So yeah, good pick, Mike.
I'm glad you guys liked it. Not really much to add that I haven't peppered in throughout the conversation. Second time watching it. I watched it when I was a kid in the theaters and haven't really thought about it much since. So it was fun going back and watching. I did not remember a single thing about it other than Tim Allen was the lead. That's the only thing I remembered. But yeah, this is a lot of fun, and it was a good combo. Thanks, everybody.
As we've been talking about this, I was reflecting on it. There's a really funny irony through our discussion about this movie that I hadn't put together beforehand. We've talked about how they didn't try to explain any of the science about how they got into space, right? We just nope. We said a couple times, you get some goo and you're in space and live with it. However, you can't get through the pivotal scene of this movie without some kids knowing the science behind how everything had to work in the show. If somebody hadn't figured out how the science works, they couldn't have got through the pivotal scene. But the movie has no intention whatsoever of trying to sell you on how stuff works. And I think that's genius for this movie.
Yeah, there was so much of that, the fandom, the real life, and that's why, 99, somebody said this came out.
Yeah.
Tim,
Brian did
Tim
Brian
did
did the
right
research. It's 99. Brian came up with
right
it.
away.
Say,
Tim said 99.
ahead of its time, but like
Brian.
Brian. just
Right.
nailing the stuff on the Comic-Cons and the fandoms and a little bit. I don't, because the toxic fandoms obviously have gotten out of control. But just the people who know the minutia of the show more than the writers or the actors, obviously the actors. But just, I don't know, for a goofy science fiction homage, how far ahead of its time, it's just weird for to say about a movie like this, but it nailed
you're
so
right.
many things.
You're right. It is ahead of its time, but it is also a very 90s movie. Like it's at the same time, it's very 90s.
Yeah. I really, really like it. I still really, really like it.
Let's see. Aaron, you're next, right?
That's not for you to say.
Whoa.
That's a good point.
That was a question.
Wow.
Jeez.
Okay.
Yes, I am.
So we'll put a bow on the Galaxy Quest movie, and I believe Aaron is up with his next pick.
Thanks, Tim.
So you guys welcome Aaron to the show. It's his next pick.
Yeah.
Aaron.
We're not doing that anymore.
Aaron.
Knock it off.
Okay.
All right. So I put almost no thought into this.
Shocking.
I'm going to use Sam Rockwell to Frost Nixon. That's going to get me to Oliver Platt 1. Oliver Platt to Flatliners. That's going to get me to Julia Roberts 2. Julia Roberts to Hook is going to get me to Dustin Hoffman 3. Dustin Hoffman and Sleepers is going to get me to Minnie Driver 4. Minnie Driver in South Park, Bigger, Blacker, Longer, and Uncut as a voice actor is going to get me to Stuart Copeland, who did the music for that animated movie, but also does the movie for She's Having a Baby, which is going to get me to Bill Murray 6, and we're going to watch The Grand Budapest with Bill Murray.
Love it.
Cool.
Now, I'm sure there's another way to get to this movie, but we said it can only be actors, and you threw a composer in there, so you broke the rules.
That's what Aaron does. It was kind of a loose knit rule anyway. I mean, Mike took 6 steps to get 1 step. I mean, the rule is just it's out there just as a guideline.
But
I still follow the
sense.
goddamn rules.
Absolutely. Nobody's saying you didn't.
Did we say we could only use actors?
It was said.
Yeah, we did say you could only use
It
actors.
was said.
I'm
but
seeing
like,
a no
for
from
the-
the center
Stop.
square.
Whoa.
I'm seeing a no from the center square.
But you know what? The like, remember we did like Oscar nominated films, and Trap was like, all right, so this one wasn't nominated for an Oscar,
That's right.
but and
You're
it's just
using
like,
Trap
it's-
as your defense.
I was gonna say,
Whatever.
look who you just used as an example.
I'm just saying
he had some other issues. Like he had technical issues.
No.
Yeah.
But the group accepted it. We didn't tell Trap no, pick another movie. We just
I didn't
kinda
tell
went with
Aaron to
it.
pick
So
another
I
movie.
say
I just
let's-
pointed out the flawed logic.
I'm just defending him.
I don't think it was flawed logic. It was breaking the rules. It's not really flawed.
You're right.
logic.
This is why it's so hard to keep
I
this
don't
group
think
together
that
right
was
here.
even a
This is what
rule.
we're
The
looking
last
for.
2 minutes defending you, and you're like, yeah, I broke the rules.
Well, no, I didn't know I didn't know I was breaking the rules.
Well, so speaking of another rule, this leaves Hilty as the anchor coming up next week. The challenge was to be able to bring this back to a Kevin Bacon movie, but that challenge was optional. So if that doesn't work out, Hilty, and you want to go another direction, you're welcome to. But you know, a real person would accept a challenge, is all I'm saying.
Fuck you, Tim. Like honestly,
Yeah.
like
Yep, that's fine. That's fine. That
Seems
sounds
fair.
about right. Sounds about right. Yeah. Yeah. Nobody's disagreeing. Nobody's going to
Oh.
defend me on that one for 2 minutes.
Well,
All right.
the reason it took 2 minutes because everybody kept on yelling at me and interrupting me about it.
Well, spin your wheel and see if anybody cares. So next week will be what was the movie again? Grand Budapest, the Grand Budapest. I usually ask this. Is there anybody here who has not seen this movie?
I have not seen it.
I have not.
I have not seen it.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay.
most of you guys, 4 out of the 7 have seen it.
Dan, you've seen it?
Yes.
Dan, have you listened to any of the podcasts?
I feel that question is not relevant to this discussion.
You're right. You're right. I'm sorry. I've been out of line for the
No.
last 10 minutes. I don't know what I'm doing here.
Did you listen to Brian's podcast that you were on?
No.
Who
That's
here
where
did?
that's
Who
where
here
I
did?
that's where I learned who your
did
favorite
not.
actor was, Dan. I've been in a movie group with you for over 200 movies, and I found out from a Comics Corner podcast that your favorite actor is Sam Rockwell.
That's funny.
By the way, Tim, there's me spinning my wheel.
Uh-huh. Well, it appears that you had 2 categories on there. One of them was fuck and the other one was you. Did you mean them in that order?
Yes.
Okay. That sounds about right.
That'll do it for this episode of the BTB Movie Club podcast. Thank you as always for listening. We know we enjoyed ourselves. We hope you did too. Have yourself a great week. We are partnered with the SPDM Crew Podcasting Network.